Good morning. With me today, I have the CEO, Jenny Sundqvist, and the CFO, Johan Gilerius. Topic for today's event is the recently announced license agreement with Viatris Japan on cobitolimod. This is a pure offline event. Please, Jenny and Johan, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Klaus. Thank you for having us. So our thinking today is that Johan and I will go through a few slides on the basics of the agreement, and then Klaus, feel free to ask us any questions you may have. So to start off, in this presentation, we have forward-looking statements, and hopefully everyone is aware of the risk related to those. So InDex Pharmaceuticals, our mission is to significantly improve the lives of patients suffering from immunological disorders by providing safe and effective drugs for diseases with high unmet needs. And if we go to the next slide, ulcerative colitis is one of those diseases. So today we're going to speak about cobitolimod, which is our phase 3 assets. It's being evaluated in a global trial consisting of 3 studies. We have induction study 1, which is ongoing, and the maintenance study. The induction study 1 patients going into maintenance, that's ongoing. What we have in the plan is a second induction study and its corresponding part of the maintenance. And these are the 3 trials required by regulatory authorities to seek market authorization. So a bit of the backdrop to the deal we're going to speak about today. In 2022, we received quite a unique decision by the Japanese regulatory authority, PMDA, in that they said they would accept Japanese patients in induction study 2 without any phase study specifically in Japanese patients. And that is quite unique. And it pays tribute to their comfort with the safety profile of cobitolimod. In addition, in March of this year, we had positive results from a pharmacokinetic study conducted in Sweden. And this study confirmed the low systemic uptake of cobitolimod. So with this backdrop, we signed a license agreement with Viatris Japan in the evening of May 31st. And the deal is to register and commercialize cobitolimod in Japan for the treatment of ulcerative colitis. So why did we pick Viatris out of the companies we were negotiating with? For a couple of reasons. First of all, they're a US-based global pharmaceutical large company. They were formed through the merger of Mylan and Upjohn, which to most are well-known names. Maybe you don't know Viatris because it's a merger, but they're from a quite well-known merger. They're listed on NASDAQ US, and they have over 30,000 employees globally in over 165 countries. So well-established with a well-functioning organization. They already have marketed products in the GI therapy area, and in Japan, it's one of their 3 largest therapeutic areas, so focus for them. And they share the view of cobitolimod and what it can do for the Japanese market. So they see the same high potential as we do. So that's the main reasons why we picked Viatris as a partner in this. And now I will leave over to Johan, who will speak a bit more about the details of the licensing agreement.
Thank you, Jenny. So let's move over to the financial terms of the license agreement. And we were paid $10 million overnight, so we have it on a bank account. But there are also a number of biodollars then to be received if we then meet the different milestones, both on the development side, but then if the product is launched, sales milestones. And on top of that, we will also receive royalties according to the industry standard, and it's also dependent on the sales level at each and every year then during the launch period. If we go over to the collaboration as such, then I think we need to come back one step then from what Jenny mentioned about the PMDA outcome. Some 18 months ago, we made a strategic decision then to enter into discussions with the PMDA on the regulatory pathway in Japan then to be able to include Japanese patients in the second induction study. That was one of the reasons. The other reason was also that we think and we still believe that it's vital to have that Japanese partner for both the development, but also, of course, the marketed product then. So with these two things in mind, then we had the discussion with a number of candidates throughout this process, and we then entered into final negotiations with Viatris, then, where we then shared a very common view on the potential of cobotolimod. Then, as in any of these kind of collaborations, there are split duties there, and we have certain obligations, and Viatris has certain obligations. Then, and we are still managing and funding the full global phase 3 program for Conclude, which will include a cohort of Japanese patients in the second induction study. The number of patients will remain to be seen, but it's something that we need to do. On top of that, as one of the outcomes of the very favorable PMD outcome, we will need to do a PK study in Japanese patients prior to filing. Not a commitment to do prior to the induction study too, but somewhere down the line and before launch, then we need to do a PK study then, which is a mirror of the PK study that we did in Sweden then, but it's on particularly Japanese patients then. So that is our obligations then in short. And secondly, then Viatris will be then, of course, responsible for the regulatory filing and the commercialization in Japan, no doubt about that. But also, which is a little bit tricky maybe to understand, is that if there is a need for additional Japanese specific studies, we don't believe that for the time being, but something might happen over time, then Viatris will run these specific Japanese studies then. So back to you, Jenny.
So just to conclude, basically, we believe that this license agreement that we just signed will maximize our sales potential in Japan and bring this innovative therapy to patients. So with that, if you have any questions, Klaus, we can open up for Q&A.
Of course, Jenny, and of course, Johan, and thanks a lot for thoroughly presentation of the recent deal you enter into. So first of all, I would like to ask you about the company's financing situation, because this changed a lot for you guys. What does this deal mean for the company's future financial needs, and more specifically, the top-up financing of the induction study, as you mentioned? Could you elaborate a little on that, please?
Yes, let's do that, and actually have a slide on that, because it is a question we've received a number of times, so it's good to cover it in detail. So the cash balance at the end of Q1 this year was 319 million. So we have a healthy cash balance in the bank. In addition to that, as Johan said, we had another 108 million that landed in our account on June 1st. So our cash balance is good, no doubt. The upfront payment that we received, the 108 million, is of course a significant contribution towards the top-up financing. In January this year, we did communicate that we will need additional top-up financing to be able to complete induction study 1 due to the delays. This, of course, is a very well-received contribution to that. But as we have already stated in early February, we need clarity on the top-up financing, and that is associated to the new timeline that we're going to commute in Q4. So that is why we have not gone out and explicitly said that this down payment from Viatris covers everything we need, because we want to be sure to wait for the new updated timeline. And what you will see here in the orange table, to the left is everything that is known, and this has been communicated before. So the milestone payments to our CRO, Parexel, who are running the study, they are known and they're unchanged. So there's nothing unknown there. Cost increases due to inflation. I mean, they're not completely known, but we can estimate them fairly reliably with the data available. So that we put that in the known category. What we'll have estimates on in Q4 is any additional services or activities required for study execution and to increase speed. So as we've said since January this year, we are trying and testing a number of different activities to increase the speed of the trial. And we will see after the summer, towards the fall end of this year, which ones of these pays out. And then we will know, okay, that worked, then we'll need to spend that for the rest of the study. So that is that unknown factor. Also, operational costs for a prolonged study. So in Q4, we're going to know the new timeline of the study. And of course, depending on the delay, we'll know the exact operational increase that we will need. And what we also did cover in February is that we will have costs for initiating the second induction study before we have financing for the second study completely secured. So that is not to avoid losing speed. So we secured 500,000 for induction study 1, and we have always said that when we have the top line results from study 1, we will go out and seek finance for study number 2. Now, if we would do that in a purely sequential order, we would lose quite a lot of time between the top line results of study 1 and before we can start study 2. And we don't want to lose time. That's not in our interest. So we will need to start some parts of the second study before we actually have the financing for the full study. So that is what we're committing in February. That still stands. And that is the reason why we still have this question that we're going to come back to. And also to keep in mind, like Johan said, we also have commitments to honor as a result of our Viatris deal. So some of the money that we receive, of course, has to be put back into our commitments with Viatris and Japan. And the last thing I wanted to mention is a very general comment. And this is not specific to this deal or this situation, but in general, InDex Pharmaceuticals and many other smaller pharmaceutical development companies will not close the door to potential new capital. I mean, that's a general, we never will. If there's a large institutional investor who comes by and is interested, or if there's another deal, we're not going to close the door. So I will never come out and say we will not need any financing ever again. It's highly unlikely unless we win the global universal lottery and have unlimited cash forever. But that's a general comment. So hopefully that cleared out a bit around that question, Klaus.
Yeah, for sure. And the last part is as you mentioned, it's a nature of being a life science company. As I understand you, it's very much about the timeline, the unsecured part about the timeline and financing. But maybe you could elaborate a little more about the milestones connected to the Viatris deal, because you get 10 million upfront, and some money you will get during the study. Is that mostly when you finish the first part of the induction study, or is it more related to the second leg of the study, Jenny? If you could elaborate anything on that. Yeah. Just to get a clearer picture, of the cash flow in the deal and your situation in relation to financing.
I think one can say that there are different milestones, but the lion part of the milestones are connected to the launch product. So it's the back end of the development period, so to speak. So you expect the money then towards the end.
Good. Thanks a lot. And you also got a pretty nice royalty deal connected with this partnership deal. You mentioned double digits. Is it between 10 and 20, or is it between 20 and 30? Are you able to elaborate on that?
I think we don't do anything, give any details, but it's the low end of the double digits, I would say.
Good. Yeah, and that's also not unusual for this type of business. Then I have a question more specific about Viatris, because it's a global player, but it's also known as a generic player, and you got a novel medicine coming into the market. How does this fit? If you could very briefly elaborate on that.
They have a history of being a generic company, but what we've seen recently is they've made quite a number of deals with actually branded products. And in the field of GI, they actually did have a generic version of Humira that they sold in Japan. They have sold that asset off and now acquiring branded products. So what we're seeing is maybe a bit of shift in the strategy in terms of that. But I think it comes down to the main question is, do they have the same belief of what cobitolimod can do for patients and in terms of the sales potential that we do and the market potential in Japan? And they do. So we're in agreement on that. So we don't see any issues with a potential history that they've had and what they might be able to do in the future. So we're very much aligned with them in terms of what the asset could do in Japan.
As I understand from both of you, you are really happy with this deal, and especially due to the Japanese market. Could you leverage on a global company like Viatris for US or Europe? And do you have other negotiations going on for the moment? Could you mention anything about that?
I think this is one of the main reasons why we're so happy with Viatris. And this is a global player with a global function. So even if we have the direct dialogue with the Japanese company, we can piggyback on a number of different global functions. So that's what one good thing would be, in collaboration with a global pharma. Secondly, we were very clear when we had this discussion with a number of candidates that it was a Japanese market that we were aiming for. And people were talking about other territories, etc. But that might be something for the second step then, but nothing is written. So it's just more of let us try the Japanese collaboration first and then see what pans out from that.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, because if you do such good deal in sorry to say, in a smaller market like Japan compared to US, it sets the standard for you guys on what you could actually achieve in a big US market. I could imagine, and you're probably thinking the same.
Yeah. Well, I think for us, it's interesting that you say that it sets the standard for us internally. This has always been what we would have expected. So I think this is more for us. It's confirmation of our asset and our story that we have always believed in. So yes, we do have high hopes both for Europe and the US. And in the US, we know it would be profitable to commercialize ourselves. And that, coupled with the deals that we make, put us in an even stronger bargaining position. So,
thanks a lot. I have a final final question for you here. What about production of capitolimod? Will you produce in all 3 regions, or will you try to centralize this part of the?
We do have our own manufacturing capacity, which will be scaled up and closer to launch. In the deal with Viatris, there is an option then for them to do certain things then, but we are producing the API, and then there might be other ways of solving this for the Japanese market only then.
Good. Yeah, but with that said, thanks a lot for your participation. I'm really happy that I could host you here today and get more insight into the deal. And once again, congrats with the deal. Thanks a lot, Jenny and Johan.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us. Pleasure.